As we grow older, we start thinking about long-term health care and will we be able to stay in our own home? The good news now, there are more options available for seniors. Today we've gathered a panel of experts to help sort out the pros and the cons. We have attorney Matthew Stillman, specializing in estate planning and elder law, Joe Stango, who's working on legislation to advocate for the elderly, and Henry Racky is the founder of PALS, which stands for Practical Assisted Living Structures. Welcome, all of you. Thank you for being here. So the goal is we want to plan ahead to avoid situations where the state might take over and that type of thing. But initially, why don't we start off, Henry? Tell us about PALS and how this is becoming really a great option for senior citizens.
Well, the PALS is a great option for allowing people to stay at home. The number one reason that people have to go into long-term care in an institution is that they don't have first-floor bathroom and handicap bathroom and bedroom facilities. The PALS allows you to have that. But in order to get to the PALS, you need to know a couple of other things. One is what your options are, and two is the planning to get there. And that's why we brought together the panel today to try and explain to people what their options are and how they can get there, and how the PALS fits in to allow them the vehicle to get there.
So perhaps PALS would be a choice once we learn about the options and
PALS is a new choice that allows people the option to stay at home rather than to have to go into expensive nursing home care. As opposed to spending $150,000 a year plus, they can put a PALS unit on their house for about $55,000 plus installation and have all the facilities there to stay at home. And assuming they know all their choices and how to get there, it could be a wonderful cost-saving option to preserve estate and give their loved ones
their independence also, really.
Independence and dignity.
And that's something that could be attached right to your home.
Attached right to your home, blends right in with the home, and you have the choice of either keeping it as a permanent unit or a removable unit.
All right, Joe, let's turn the conversation over to you. You are an advocate for the elderly, and you've worked to get new legislation into Connecticut, but you're trying to expand, is that correct?
Let's be careful. It's not just seniors. It's also disabled people of any age. We've got a boy right now in Waterbury who's from New Haven, who should be coming home any day now, but he was 19 and in a car accident, and the government's answer to him was to put him into a nursing home. He's been there for 5 years, and if it wasn't for Money Follows the Person, which is the legislation that the state had passed for my mom, he wouldn't have the opportunity to come home. He could be there for 40 years.
Wow.
So it's very encompassing, but what's important is that people understand what their options are, and that word options just drives me insane, because the way Medicaid is set up, the government essentially makes the choices for most of us, not in all cases, but for most of us. And my point is, it shouldn't be the government's choice. It should be the individual's choice. Choice should be the centerpiece of Medicaid. And what's great about this panel here today is, in terms of my situation, we explain what those choices are. Matt, as the attorney, helps people to plan, and they should be planning early. And then, of course, one of the greatest options now is PALS. If I had known about PALS 10 or 15 years ago, I'm from the great city of Waterbury, and I lived in the north end of Waterbury, and we had a beautiful one-family home. It was just great for 3 kids. But if I knew about PALS, I could have put that addition on my home and kept my mom and eventually my mother-in-law as well, who we care for now, right there in Waterbury. Instead, we had to move out of the city that we loved, and we had to build a house specifically for 2 handicapped moms. So this is a much less expensive way to handle it.
And a lot of people don't have that option to build a house specifically for their...
I was very fortunate from that standpoint. The bank owns the house, but I was fortunate enough to live in it.
Okay. And we should mention that this is really a problem that affects everyone. It's not just elderly, it's not just the disabled. I mean, even I was thinking about it on a personal note. We lost my grandmother a year ago, and now my poor grandfather is stuck by himself, and we're constantly thinking, what if he falls? What if something happens?
We see, to that point, Medicaid, which is primarily a long-term care program for seniors and disabled people, it was originally conceived back in '65 by President Johnson to be the health care program for the poor. But as time has grown, what we have found is it is now the primary long-term care program for not only the poor, but for the middle class as well. And the middle class is unaware of the danger of long-term care illnesses. It used to be 20, 25 years ago, the big issue that Matt had, the discussion that he had with his clients was estate planning. Well, with the estate planning laws the way they are, the middle class is pretty much exempt from them. So now the big issue is, well, what happens if I just grow old and I become ill, but I'm not dying, I'm going to just continue to live. Where am I going to live, and who's going to help me? That's where Matt comes in.
That was a very nice transition there, Joe.
Thank you.
So, at the point is to plan ahead. Start early with this.
Clearly, that's the most opportune way to handle this. Frankly, if you go to an attorney as your elderly parent or grandparent is on their way to the nursing home or are already in the nursing home, your planning options are limited. The earlier and more advanced time you can get to an elder law attorney to work with them, I'm sure the more money you can save. Frankly, we always encourage our clients to come to us in their 60s, in their 70s, not to wait till they're 80 or even 90 when they have a critical care need, where they need the assistance to either get home care or basically be in a nursing home. And the earlier you can get to us, the more we can do to help you. So.
And what are some of the things you would tell a client that came in right off the bat and wanted to get this process started?
Well, first of all, to qualify for Medicaid and similar programs, you have to have certain financial limitations. And you can't give money away to basically reach those limitations. Otherwise, the state will penalize you and force you on what is known as a penalty period. So our immediate plan is to say, look, don't give your money away to your children, and then we encourage and counsel people on how they can transfer money without incurring that penalty. Thus, if they need to be eligible for these programs, it preserves their eligibility. And that's one of our primary focuses. And then, of course, we do other estate planning and tax planning and things like that.
Got it.
May I add something to that?
Certainly.
There are two questions that every single one of your viewers should ask themselves. Number one, if something happens to me, if I just grow old and I need extra help, how am I going to pay for it? And when they come to the conclusion that it's going to come out of my earnings or my assets, then the second question they should ask is, okay, well, now what happens if I outlive my assets? Who's going to take care of me? And they will ultimately come to the conclusion that, well, they're going to eventually qualify for Medicaid. That's when they need to go see Matt.
Okay.
Well, they need to come see me before they have to qualify for Medicaid.
Well, they should be asking themselves those questions now, is the point. While they're younger, especially folks, and I hate to say it, in our 50s, this is a good time to begin asking those questions, not only about ourselves, but certainly the ones that we love.
All right. Joe, good advice. And Henry, we should mention about an event coming up on Saturday.
Now, on Saturday, we will be opening our Aging in Place Resource Center in Southbury, Connecticut. And this is a place where people can come in, walk through a PALS. We have done a PALS unit inside a storefront. We have a resource center for helping people look at what they have at their homes now, how they can modify their homes to stay in place. We do home evaluations, home modifications. We have all kinds of equipment to help them stay in their home, modify their home, so that they don't have to go into long-term care. So this will be open. The grand opening will be Saturday, 10 to 2 in Southbury, Connecticut, in the Union Plaza, 385 Main Street South.
Very good. And all that information is on the screen right now. And if you'd like more information on what we talked about today, you can contact Henry Racky at PALS. The phone number is right there on the screen. So I want to thank you all for being here. It was very informative, and I appreciate it.